The Galactic Council had seen many things in its thousand-year history, but nothing quite prepared them for the human diplomatic vessel that arrived at Station Kepler 7 with what appeared to be an oven. Eloise Chen stepped off the transport ramp, her auburn hair tied back in a practical bun, wearing not the formal attire expected of a cultural liaison, but a flour-dusted apron over her standard-issue uniform. Behind her, Zion Martinez, her security detail and unofficial taste tester, carried 3 insulated containers that emanated the most peculiar aroma. "Is that combusted organic matter?" Ambassador Vexthor of the Krillian Dominion asked, his crystalline form refracting the station's lights in alarm. "Cookies," Eloise corrected cheerfully. "Chocolate chip, to be precise." The incident that would later be known as the Cookie Catalyst began innocently enough 3 cycles earlier. Eloise had been assigned to the station as part of humanity's ongoing integration into galactic society. The species of the Galactic Council were ancient, sophisticated, and utterly befuddled by humans, those strange mammals who had somehow survived on a death world they called Earth, and still smiled about it. Eloise's first week had been unremarkable until she encountered young Kree, a Valtorian cub who had been separated from his creche unit during a diplomatic function. The child's fur was matted with tears, his 6 eyes blinking in distress. While other species maintained their distance, Valtorians were notoriously skittish, Eloise simply sat down beside him. "Hey there, little guy," she said softly. "Bad day?" Kree had nodded, a gesture he'd learned from watching human broadcasts. "I am scared. My parents says I must be brave, but the station is too big." Eloise thought of her own nephew back on Earth. "You know what helps me when I'm scared? Cookies." "What are cookies?" 45 minutes later, Eloise's personal quarters had been transformed into an impromptu bakery. Zion stood guard at the door, bemused but alert, as Eloise pulled a tray of golden-brown cookies from her compact synthesis oven. "You keep an oven in your quarters?" Zion asked. "You don't?" Eloise replied, as if this were the most natural thing in the universe. Kree's reaction to his first cookie was nothing short of miraculous. His fur literally changed colors, cycling through the entire Valtorian emotional spectrum from confusion to surprise to pure, unbridled joy. The combination of sugar, butter, and chocolate, substances his species had never encountered in such harmonious combination, triggered something primal in his brain chemistry. This is... Kree struggled for words in Standard Galactic. "This is the taste of happiness." Word spread quickly among the station's youth population. Within a day, Eloise had 5 cubs outside her door. Within 2 days, 17. By the 3rd day, the waiting list had grown to over 200, representing 43 different species. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. "This is unprecedented," Council Speaker Jara announced, her tentacles coiled in agitation. "The human has created a demand for combusted grain paste." "Baked goods," Zion corrected from his position behind Eloise. He'd become surprisingly defensive of the cookies, having sampled every batch. "The human culture liaison has disrupted station protocols," Ambassador Vexthor insisted. "Young ones are neglecting their studies. My own offspring spent 3 hours in queue yesterday." "Did he get a cookie?" Eloise asked innocently. Vexthor's crystalline structure flickered. "That is not relevant. Did he like it?" A long pause. "He has requested 17 more." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated arguments. Species that hadn't agreed on anything in decades suddenly found common ground. They all wanted to understand the human and her inexplicable power over their children. Elder Thorne of the Xeni Collective, oldest member of the council, raised a weathered claw for silence. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we are approaching this incorrectly." Humans have something we have forgotten in our millennia of civilization. Perhaps we should learn from it rather than fear it. Learn what, exactly? Jara asked. To transform organic matter into emotional manipulation devices? To care, Eloise said quietly, standing from her seat. That's all I did. I saw a scared child and wanted to help. On Earth, we have a tradition. When someone is hurting, you feed them. You sit with them. You make them cookies. But why? Vexthor pressed. What tactical advantage does this provide? None, Zion interjected, surprising everyone, including himself. That's the point. Humans don't just do things because they're logical or provide advantage. Sometimes we do things because they're kind. The council chamber fell silent as this concept settled over the gathered representatives like snow. I have a proposal, Eloise continued. Let me teach anyone who wants to learn. Not just about baking, but about the philosophy behind it. About caring for others without expecting anything in return. About creating moments of joy in a complex universe. And the waiting list? Jara asked. Eloise smiled. I'll need a bigger oven. And an assistant. She glanced at Zion, who sighed but nodded. 3 months later, Station Kepler 7 had its first interspecies cooking club. What started as cookie distribution had evolved into something far more significant. Different species working together, sharing traditions. Learning that care and kindness weren't human-exclusive traits, but universal languages waiting to be spoken. The waiting list still existed, now numbering over 800, but it wasn't just for cookies anymore. It was for the experience of learning that in a vast, often cold universe, warmth could be created one small gesture at a time. Ambassador Vexthor never did admit how many cookies his offspring actually consumed, but security footage showed him leaving Eloise's expanded kitchen every Friday evening with a container tucked under his crystalline arm. When asked about it, he simply stated, I am conducting ongoing cultural research. Zion, standing nearby, bit back a smile. Of course, Ambassador, very thorough research. And somewhere in the station, young Kree was teaching other cubs the human phrase Eloise had taught him. Everything's better with cookies. The Galactic Council would never quite be the same. And perhaps, for the first time in centuries, that was exactly what it needed.